Hey everyone, welcome back to Free the Money. I have a really exciting episode for you guys today. I got to sit down and talk to the one and only Dr. Jim Willie. I am really grateful to my friend Bersan Eljarab and the Black Swan Capitalist for making this happen. So thank you very much, Bersan. Dr. Jim Willie holds a PhD in statistics. He is a statistical analyst and an expert in macroeconomics. In today's episode, we jump into all things XRP, Ripple. We talk about silver, gold prices. We even get into the reverse of the Japanese carry trade and so much more. If you are interested in any of these topics, be sure to check out today's episode. Before we get into today's episode, I would like to encourage you to check out Dr. Jim Willie's newsletter. I will have it linked down below. His newsletter is amazing. My family has subscribed to it for the past couple of years, and they certainly have learned a lot from this. So if you want to be able to support his work, certainly check that out. Well, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dr. Jim Willie. Let's get into the show.
It happened 2 days ago. They called in Garlinghouse for a Senate hearing and discussion regarding crypto because they're debating all the various things regarding the Clarity Act, and they're already screwing it up. The senators are screwing it up. They got all kinds of weird shit in there. Okay, so they had at the meeting, the Federal Reserve injected a statement for their endorsement. They said in the Senate, they let it be known in the Senate and got reported in the Senate by reporters that the Federal Reserve now accepts gold, U.S. Treasuries, and XRP as legitimate transfer devices. I have a computer science bachelor's degree, and I did not major in my main strength, which was mathematics. You know, I was way up in the 99 percentiles, way up in the 99 percentile, like 99.7. And I didn't major in math because I thought the people were really weirdos. And I didn't want to major in have classes with a pack of weirdos. So I said, I want to learn how to do computer programming. I think that kicks butt. And I had a great time. But you know, when you major in something that's not your strength and you get to the senior year, you hit a wall. And I hit the wall. So then I spent the next 2 years essentially getting a mathematics major so that I could start 2 years later the master's program at Carnegie Mellon in statistics. And for people who don't know, it's mathematics. It's mathematics with an emphasis on statistical applications. It's probability. I mean, it's the bell-shaped curve. You know the normal bell-shaped curve? It's the most famous of all. I went from a computer company. You probably, okay, this is like an age test. It's really quite funny. You know IBM and you know Hewlett Packard.
Yeah.
Do you know Digital Equipment Corp?
No.
Okay, but they were number 2 until 1992. They were number 2. So I was there from 1980 to 1992. We were bigger than Hewlett Packard. 130,000 employees, 130. But the executive made some serious mistakes and the company crumbled. And then I did the consulting for a couple of years. And then I joined Staples, which I'm sure you know about. Staples was a really good employer.
So, what got you so interested in macroeconomics after your very impressive career with Staples and huge tech companies?
What got me interested?
Yeah.
Okay, this is a subtle answer.
Okay.
The lack of appreciation in U.S. industry for statistics talent.
Okay.
And the need to educate the public on economics because the economists are lousy. They work for banks, they work for governments, and they are therefore compromised. They don't know the danger of debt. I've argued with Ivy League PhDs and I found them to be nothing but clowns. I mean, very bright clowns. I mean, some clowns are really smart, but they're clowns. They never understood. Okay, here's a question I ended a debate with. It was a Cornell doctorate in economics. I said, well, what happens when the debt gets too big? that'll crowd out the debt market. You might even get to a point where the debt and the interest is so big that it's a problem. Now it's bigger than the defense budget. And his answer was, well, that'll never happen. I said, well,
Well, it already has happened.
what if it happens? And he said, it'll never happen. I said, you don't get this. We're accelerating the debt, and you figure that it'll never get big when it's accelerating. So does that mean that a car that accelerates will never go fast? I mean, you're giving me a dumb answer that avoids my hypothetical. What happens if the debt gets large? And then, you try to get into the things like, well, we have no backing of the dollar, and the sound money. Okay, it's called the Austrian School of Economics.
Yeah.
And it's Ludwig von Mises. And I met the daughter of his right-hand man. I think his name was Lips, Lipps. And I did so in Germany, in Munich, where I had my life threatened by U.S. Homeland Security. You keep talking like that, Jim, you're going to get a bullet in the back of your head. I said, who would be holding the trigger? And he said, I don't like using the word, but let me give you a hint. It's a security agency beginning with the letter M, and it's from a little country in the southeast corner of the Mediterranean.
Scary. So what did you do?
I left the country. I said, screw you. I'm not paying taxes to a country where the government threatens my life. But there is an element of jumping out of the frying pan and into the fire. It's a third world fire. Don't let anybody kid you, and don't fall for the argument that it's 2.5 world. There's not a whole lot of difference between this and Namibia and Tanzania. All you got to do is move to a really good developed city in those third world countries, and you get a great similarity where the national sport is not soccer, football, it's fraud.
Yeah.
Are you aware that 10 or 12 years ago, we had slightly lower global silver mine output, but now we got twice the price? So the price has gone up more than double, and we have lower output. That's called inelastic supply. Now, if you do that with television sets, you lower the price, you're going to get a lot more demand. You're going to get, wait a minute, if you raise the price of a television set, you're going to improve your profit margin. Okay, I don't want to get all balled up. The really important thing is that you got a supply demand curve.
Yeah.
And supply usually increases when you raise the price. If you raise the price, are you going to open up that mine in Bolivia? Or are you going to open up that mine that's mothballed in Chile? Or are you going to open up a Brazilian silver mine? Because now you got a higher price. Doesn't matter. The globe is running out of silver. So that's why I believe we're going to probably end up somewhere around 400.
Quick commercial break. I just want to talk to you about I Trust Capital. So with inflation, taxes, and market uncertainty, you don't have to let these things control your future. That's why I use I Trust Capital. I Trust Capital lets you invest in crypto, silver, and gold all inside a tax advantage IRA. I've been using I Trust Capital since 2021. It's like a traditional IRA, but upgraded. I'm able to invest in assets like Bitcoin and XRP while still getting the same tax benefits you'd expect from a traditional IRA. There are no monthly fees. The platform is super simple. And the best part is, this is such a powerful way to diversify your retirement outside of just stocks and bonds. So you're able to roll over your existing IRA, or you can start a new one. And if you sign up down below with this link, you're able to actually get a $100 funding bonus. So take charge of your financial future with I Trust Capital.
Now, when I said that 3 years ago, people said, "Oh, Jim, what kind of Kool-Aid are you drinking?" And I told them, you wait till the U.S. government debt problem is acute, and you wait till foreign governments don't want to buy our treasury bonds. Then you wait for where the ports cannot use treasury bills to give to the Koreans and the Japanese. And by the way, that's exactly what happened right before they launched the Ukraine war. I believe they launched the Ukraine war because the treasury bill was no longer wanted at port facilities. Uh-oh, we got a problem here. What do? Well, let's make a panic. Let's make a problem. Let's even make it so that we can print trillions of dollars and they will not be rejected because we'll be putting them in war. And in war, nobody rejects the treasury bond. Oh my gosh. Now, who has ever said or made the claim that the Ukraine war was a response to a rejection of a treasury bill? Nobody. Nobody. All right. So that's one big issue. Are you aware that in 2019, late in the year, the repo window, the repurchase of treasuries. So a bank would say, we need more cash. We're gonna give you like $1 billion worth of treasuries. We need the cash. Or the reverse, where the Fed says, we have too much cash in the market. We need to remove some of the cash and we'll give you treasuries. So there's a repo. It's called repo, repurchase. In late 2019, we got up to 1.3, 1.4 trillion dollars per night. That means it's broken.
And we're starting to see that again, right?
Yes,
like
we are.
right before COVID, and now we're seeing the repo markets also going wild.
Right, but okay, remember, repo broke with a huge volume in late 2019. What happened in early 2020?
COVID.
They launched a fake pandemic. And that enabled them to do, the COVID stimulus. Are you aware that the banks had 5 trillion, then 4 trillion in COVID stimulus by the Congress? And with a non-disclosure agreement of a congressional bill to benefit 9 trillion to the banks, no discussion for 18 months. Is that not illegal or what? Okay. That's why we had problems with the treasuries 18 months after the COVID stimulus bill, which was right around the end of 22. Okay, there's a lot going on that is absolutely brutally corrupt. Okay, when in modern history, or even in the last 400 years, have we had locking down in a quarantine healthy people? Never.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a funny detail. What's the meaning and the origin of the word quarantine? Okay, it was in Venice and they had the plague. So ships arrived and they had to wait in the ships for 40 days. The word in French for 40 is cuarenta. No, quarante. Oh, I should do Spanish because I'm in Spanish land. The word for 40 in Spanish is quarantine. Cuarenta. Cuarenta. Quarantine, 40 days. You're in the ship for 40 days. If nobody's dead and no evidence of the plague, you can come onto the shore. It's a 40-day rule, quarantine. Anyway, quite interesting. My dad was my dad was a literature professor, so I learned a lot of weird stuff.
So now we're seeing the reversal of the yen carry trade. And I'm just curious the effects this is going to have on the US Treasuries. We're seeing a lot of countries now not being interested in having these treasuries. What type of effect is that going to have in the next year?
Okay, we've got to define the structure of the yen carry trade first.
Yeah.
Let me keep it in the simplest terms because I don't want to blow people away. In the 1990s, the Japanese had a problem because their export trade became too strong. The Toyotas and back then it was Datsun, not Nissan. They didn't really have Hondas except for motorcycles, but their whole export trade was powerful. and the yen started going up, 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 the yen. And they consulted with Wall Street and said, what do? We got too strong a currency. And they said, why don't you go to 0%? That'll wreck your currency. But they had an ulterior motive. When they went to 0%, Wall Street borrowed it and bought treasuries.
Yeah.
So that's borrowing at 0 and investing at 6 and 8%. Let's leave leverage out with the futures and just say that they got a VIG of 6% or so. Okay, Wall Street is a pack of liars. Wall Street is a pack of corrupt banks that regard penalties for fraud as a cost of doing business. They never admit guilt. They never shut down their banks. They never are liquidated. They just go to the next crime scene. For instance, JP Morgan has had $250 billion in fines and penalties and never once admitted a financial felony. Never once. Okay, so Wall Street is a pack of liars. They said a couple months ago that they only have about $200 billion worth of borrowed yen.
Probably way more than that.
I think it's more like 3 to 5 trillion.
Yeah, it's more.
Okay. I also believe that they have been maintaining the 3 to 5 trillion every year, rolling it over and making that VIG. The VIG is a delta, a difference. The VIG is like 6%, the difference, making the difference of 6%. And leave out the futures contract because that multiplies it by 20, whatever they do. So, a couple of years would pass, a few years would pass, they roll it over, they do it again, they roll it over, do it again. Let me ask you a basic criminal question. If they had an opportunity to make $1 trillion one year by rolling it over, do you think they would shut it down or roll it over?
They're going to roll it over. They want the money.
Absolutely. That's why I don't believe their $200 billion figure. That's a big fat lie. But that's what they do. They lie.
Yeah.
And a lot of naive people think, oh, why would they tell a lie? That wouldn't be right. Because they're a criminal organization. Okay, so back to the yen carry trade. Something happened in 2021 and 2. Okay, this is subtle and it's very difficult to comprehend, but you got to get a grip with it because I don't want to oversimplify the yen carry trade because it's not that simple. The Bank of Japan, their central bank, decided we don't want all these treasury bonds because the U.S. government debt is out of control. It's doubling every 8 years. We don't want this. So they sold approximately $200 billion worth of treasuries.
Wow.
Now you would think, and I made this mistake. I make mistakes once in a while. And it's especially easy with the Japanese yen because their currency is reported upside down. What's the dollar worth in yen terms? The euro is not reported like that. The euro is what's the euro worth in dollar terms. Okay, let's just not get complicated here. Here's the difficult part, and this is a paradox. If they sold treasury bonds, why didn't their yen go up?
Why?
Because their yen has a basis of dollar reserves.
Oh, okay.
Their yen went down 20%. And that caused a cascade of problems. Foreign holders of their debt started dumping because they realized an immediate loss of 20% for holding Japanese debt. And there's a lot of Japanese debt. So how did Japan react to that? They printed money to cover that lost revenue and liquidity for the sales of their government debt. So they printed money and their currency went more down.
Yeah.
So they announced that they're going to go to the gold standard, and their leaders started to get assassinated by our cabal bankers.
Yeah, like we always do.
Oh boy, oh boy. Okay, so now remember, Wall Street borrowed the yen in order to buy treasuries. Now what they borrowed just went down 20% in value, so they got a discount on their borrowings.
So it's an even better deal.
Okay, they got a big bonus. And that means it's time to sell. It's time to get out of this because it can only go back up. And that's what it's doing now.
Yeah, yeah. And then also, wait, just a quick question. I'm thinking out loud, but what's going on now in Venezuela, will that also affect Japan? Like if say oil prices do go up, how is that also going to impact the Japanese economy?
I have a feeling that you've been listening to Jake Claver.
I actually don't. I've never listened
Oh,
to the show before.
okay, because that's one of his concerns. If the oil price goes up, the Japanese will raise interest rates
Yeah,
because,
yeah,
because they import 100% of their oil. But the effect so far has been after the Venezuelan, I don't even know what to call it,
yeah.
ambush, arrest, whatever.
Very,
I don't
very
know what to.
curious of, very curious of your thoughts on that. Do you think that was a good move?
I want to finish with your yen carry trade because I'm a sequential logical guy. Um, let's just we'll table that, please. This is very difficult stuff to explain and a huge consequence. So let's finish with the yen carry trade. Okay,
Okay.
so Wall Street got a 20% discount, and they had to start murdering the Japanese official to keep them in line and not to get them to go to the gold standard. That's very important. Very, very important. So now the Japanese are raising interest rates because they're realizing problems as a result of printing money to combat the effect from foreigners who took a loss on their government bonds. So they created inflation by printing money in reaction to the currency decline, which was affected and manifested by foreigners selling their government bond. Okay, they got a cycle. They got a vicious, ugly cycle. But now they're raising interest rates. Their 30-year bond and 10-year bond has never been higher in like 40 years. And Wall Street is on alert. We've got to stop our yen carry trade. We must put it into reverse. Now, here's where Wall Street has another lie. They say that this is a Japanese problem. Now, you may not know this, but the Japanese have a tremendous amount of savings. They have a huge export surplus. So they end up buying treasury bonds. They do. They buy euro bonds in Europe. They buy UK gilts in England. They buy foreign sovereign debt. Now
Mm-hmm.
it's coming back. They're coming back
Yeah.
because, as they say, it's a danger to hold their debt, and it's a benefit to bring it back home because we get more interest rates. We're
Yeah, of course.
raising
Yeah, if
rates.
they raise the rates, obviously they're going to get a better at home.
Okay, now let's switch over to Wall Street. Wall Street is going to accelerate that. They're going to do it also, and they're going to blame the Japanese because they're nothing but liars. They're going to say it's a Japanese problem. Look what the Japanese have done to wreck the world economy.
Yeah. Even though it was
Okay,
them who basically created this problem. They were the ones who
Wall
encouraged.
Street suggested the 0%. Now, what's the
Mhm.
effect on the U.S. economy?
Yeah.
What we're going to get is rising long bond yields,
Okay.
rising mortgage rates. Look what Trump did last week. He ordered a $200 billion mortgage bond infusion. Now, he doesn't have control of Fannie Mae. That's kind of a broken engine. Boy, did 2007 destroy that. 2007 and 8. By the way, that was a JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs crime scene, not a layman.
They
Goldman
seem like they,
Sachs,
they always seem like they're the common denominator, JP Morgan.
yeah, and Goldman Sachs. I
Yeah.
call them Goldman Sachs. Anyway, um, so we're going to see when this thing gets like in the higher gear,
Hmm.
we're going to see U.S. Treasuries dumped globally
Yeah.
and higher interest rates like the 10-year. It's basically the 10-year bond. We
Yeah.
don't really do much with
And
the
then
30.
and then Trump will come in to save the day with the stable coins. Is
I
that's going to be the next shoe
I
in?
I I think it's the next problem.
Yeah, no, I'm totally not for centralized stable coins. I'm totally opposed to the Clarity Act. I think it's just trying to cover up all the damage the dollar's done, and it's basically like a Trojan horse for CBDC. And I'm very curious of your thoughts on this, but it seems like it's a great way to get basically the entire world really tied to our debt at an even larger scale than it is now.
Well, you said a lot there, girl. I'm telling you, the the Clarity Act has many different sides. It's to establish the rules for tokenizing assets, including, you know, property titles, commercial
Mhm.
titles. It's for governing the usage of stable coins. It's for usage by central banks of bridge assets. It's for declaring and authorizing the removal of escrow accounts in transfer. You know, the vostro nostro, your 10 billion, our 10 billion to move 10 billion. You don't need the 10 billion on the side anymore.
No, no.
Okay, I'm on the other side from you. I like the Clarity Act, and I have one provision. I don't want the CBDC.
Yeah,
And
of course.
well, you know, there's kind of a, I have kind of a, oh gosh, it's like a statement on the wall. CBDC is okay, but not in the United States. It's okay in Greece. It's okay in Japan.
If that's what the
Because,
people, if that's what the people want, but in America, that's not what we want.
no, that's not it. Because Japan does it honestly.
Yeah. Oh, you're saying they're not hiding behind another title for it.
Yes, yes, they're not going to be instituting the Chinese credit
Yeah.
scoring. They're not going to be doing control of digital identity using CBDCs and having it a universal tool for the police state.
But
But
do you think now basically everything eventually being tokenized, and they're even saying that human beings will eventually be tokenized. Do you see that being a threat to human freedom?
well, yeah, and that's why we need to institute the digital finance, but not permit the digital ID.
Mhm.
Have you seen what England's reaction has been to the digital ID?
Sorry,
King Charles.
can you say that last sentence again? You totally froze. I couldn't hear anything you said for
Okay.
the
Are
last.
you aware? Are you aware what happened in England in the last 2 or 3 weeks
Yes,
when they
people.
tried to, they opposed it, but King Charles came out and said, this is not what Britain is all about. We want privacy. We're not going to do this. And what King Charles has started is going to be a vote of no confidence and a removal of Starmer as Prime Minister of England. That's how much the anti-CBDC and digital ID is. I mean, that's
Yeah, no,
good. I
no, it
celebrated that. Can,
brings chills
can,
to my body because it's like now that, especially, I mean, I know there's a lot of really bad things about social media, but there are a lot of good things, and people are having more knowledge accessible to them, and people are able to come together and really like educate one another and really like rise up against digital ID, CBDCs, and all of these threats we're facing. And I see that as a win. So I
look,
really,
no, we got a slight lag, so I thought you'd pause. Go ahead, finish. You can finish.
oh, I was just saying, like, I
You
see that
thought
as
you thought
I see that as a major win for humanity overall. And like, there's just so many smart people on social media that we're able to learn from, and at least be getting information that's just not what the
sure,
basically
sure.
indoctrinating us with.
I'll tell you why I like digital finance.
Okay, tell me.
But I say this on the proviso. I don't want the CBDC and I don't want the digital ID. I
Good.
want everything else.
Okay.
Here are the main reasons. Because transactions, titles, assets, and savings and various things will be on the blockchain,
Of course.
encrypted, and there. What does that
It's,
mean?
wait,
What's
as long as we have ownership to these assets, though, that they're not in the hands of centralized authorities. That's the most important thing, that we remain in control.
right? That's why I like several blockchains, not
Yeah.
one. I don't want a government blockchain, and I
No,
don't
no.
want a government stablecoin.
Competition.
I
They're gonna
want numerous blockchains and I want numerous stablecoins. That's how you get fairness, and that is not what a CBDC is. It's the opposite of a CBDC. It's a decentralized
good.
system, whereas
Yeah.
CBDC is central bank, centralized. Okay,
Yeah.
here's the other thing I like about digital assets. It's assets, not just digital money. It's like a refinery. Their
Mhm.
title is on a blockchain. Wall Street can't do their fraud.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, because there is transparency. Oh, I'm sorry. I am actually interested in your stance on privacy coins. I talk a lot on my channel. I don't know if you've ever listened to any of my videos, but I'm very big on privacy coins, and I think in order to really escape possibly this dystopian world we're entering into. The fact that me and you can transact privately, I think, is really important. Do you own any privacy coins, or are you interested in them?
I don't know what a privacy coin is. I like XRP. I
Yeah.
like XLM. I have a lot of respect for Hedera and Solana,
Yeah.
and I try to learn about that. Is that what you're referring to? Privacy coins?
No,
Not,
so it's
I don't
actually,
think so.
so it's really cool. Yeah. So like
What?
basically XRP, and I think XRP is amazing. And I'm a big holder of XRP. I totally believe in its technology. But a privacy coin is a private blockchain. So where
Oh,
your wallet
pri
information is all private. So like the big privacy coins are Monero, which have you heard of Monero
yeah.
before? Okay, so Monero, Zcash, and Zano are three very popular privacy coins. And basically, it almost was like what Bitcoin was made for. Because when Bitcoin was created, it was, it's a public ledger where if you were to send me Bitcoin, I could go and track everything in your wallet. I could see how much money you have, what you've sent, and I think privacy is really necessary. So with these privacy coins, you're able to really take back that security, which I think is really important because obviously, like you don't want all of your financial information public. So like Zcash was created to be like private Bitcoin.
Yeah, I understand. And those are wonderful things. And that's
Yeah.
probably the lack of privacy is probably the worst thing about the crypto and digital assets.
Yeah.
They're sitting on the blockchain. For instance, they got the rich list. And let's go see who are the biggest holders of XRP, the rich
It's
list.
very dangerous.
But we don't know their names. You just know their
Yeah,
wallet.
but you could track everything that they're doing and you could figure out.
You can infer who they
Yeah.
are based on their activity. I
Or if they were
understand
to
that.
yeah, if I sent you money, you could know that that address is tied to me. But if I were to send you Zcash, Zano, or Monero, you would never know because
Yeah. We're
it's
we're
private.
probably we're probably in the next year or two going to see some improvements to the coins like XRP so that there is more privacy installed. I don't know how they're going to do it, but where there's a need, there's a way. And I
Yeah,
think that will
there's a
happen.
cool thing called like ZK proofs. I don't know if you've ever looked into that, but ZK proofs can be added on, and that's really interesting. That's what Zcash uses because they have both shielded and unshielded transactions, which is really interesting. I feel like you would love some of these coins, so I definitely encourage you to check them out later if you're interested at all. But the tech is very cool.
Okay. When the yen carry trade gets into full bloom, uh, we're going to get an inflation problem. And you think gold and silver have gone up a lot? Wait till you see the inflation problem.
Do you like
And
my
and
silver dress? I wore this just for you to talk about silver.
yeah, that's very nice. It'd be nice if you stood up and twirled around a little bit, but we won't get into that. um, we're going to see the U.S. government print money to buy their own bonds, and it's already started. So what you're seeing with gold and silver is round one and two,
Mm-hmm.
and there might be 7 rounds. I don't think we're going to stop till we get to like 400 silver and 10,000 gold, and
Wow.
maybe not even there. I got to tell you an interesting story, Bree. I mean, I'm a storyteller, and usually there are lessons behind it. Okay, it was 2020, and silver couldn't get over 30. Silver got up to 29 and 30. You remember the Reddit and the GameStop?
Yeah.
Okay, that was the timing. It was August and September of 2020. So I had a source of information. I called him Maxwell from Luxembourg because he was European and didn't want his country of origin to be known. So I said, okay, I'll give you a name with Luxembourg. So Maxwell from Luxembourg started feeding me information. And he said, there's a biweekly luncheon that the Euro Central Bank hosted in Switzerland. And it was for like traders in gold and silver, bankers who are involved in wealth management, um, other people involved in the banking industry, like for large commercial loans, and people who did hedging and bond and all kinds of currency trade. Okay, that's the setting. and they had about 80 or 100 people at each lunch every 2 weeks. They got on stage and they made dog and pony presentations, but some of them went up there to bitch, okay, to complain about a bank really screwed me, and they weren't allowed to mention names.
Ooh.
Okay, so it was a pretty interesting setting. Well, they did a poll. What is the equilibrium fair price of silver and gold? And it came out at 400 silver, 10,000 gold. That's where I think we're heading. But
Yeah.
they did another poll about 3 months later, 4 months later, after I believe the effects of the COVID stimulus, that extra 9 trillion,
Yeah.
and you know, they're reacting to a rejection of treasuries by printing more treasuries so everybody could get richer.
Mm-hmm.
If you were told, um, oh, if you rejected a certain coin because I don't think that's real, I don't like that, that's not legitimate, and then they gave you 10,000 of them and said, well, you can go spend them. Okay, that's how you eradicate the refusal of low quality money. Okay, so they did another poll at the same luncheon, and they came up with 600 silver and 15,000 gold. Okay, I don't think we're anywhere near the top. And I get a common question. Hey, Jim, we just hit 80 for silver. It hit 90 yesterday.
Yeah. 92, I think.
92, yeah. So when it hit 80 and backed off a little bit, by the way, I have a joke, and it's meant to be partly funny and partly real. I say Fibonacci's in the room. 10, 20, 30, 50, 80, 130. 10, 20, 50, 10, 20, 30, 50, 80, 130. Okay,
Wow.
we had a hard time at 30. We had a decade at 20. We had about a month at 50. We didn't even shake a leg at 60, 70, or 80.
Yeah.
I think we will have a cup of coffee at 100.
Yeah.
It'll be a psychological, oh, don't think that's the end. We're going to go to 130 because that's the Fibonacci sequence. This is uncharted territory. All right. Are we printing money to manage problems now? Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Are we printing money to cover the BRICS nations selling their treasury bonds? Yes. And we're tying it in with USD Tether, the stable coin.
Yeah.
I greatly dislike Tether.
And Tether freezes so much money. If you hold Tether, you could be censored, you can be frozen. They have full control. It's a centralized stablecoin, and people need to understand that. Sorry, I feel very passionate.
You can have your account frozen. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So Tether, like, say you have it in whatever wallet, they could freeze it. They could freeze it if they don't like what you're saying.
Do they freeze your whole account, or do they freeze your Tether?
Your Tether, because it's centralized. You've said that, silver is what's going to end up breaking the banks. Why silver over gold?
For the longest time, we had a 90-to-1 ratio, and it's got to come back to 30-to-1 ratio, and for a reason that most people don't comprehend. It's going to have to go to 30-to-1 because that's what the petrodollar derivative has stipulated in the oil versus dollar backed by gold and silver. It's at a 30-to-1 ratio in the petrodollar derivative, and they're being liquidated. And as they're being liquidated, it's helping to converge toward 30. So when you're seeing silver going up, you might be seeing some of the big banks liquidating their petrodollar derivatives, and in the process, they're pushing the ratio back down where it should have been. I don't know if you're aware of what's called the bimetallic standard that stood for a century, 16-to-1.
Oh,
in
yeah,
the 19th century.
Gold to silver ratio, right?
Yeah, it's called the bimetallic standard. And that was evident during like Lincoln's time. I can't see real well. I don't like glasses, but I can't see real. I only needed glasses when I turned 72.
Oh, that's pretty late. So I mean, that means your vision's been great like your whole life. I mean, some people have to wear glasses since they're little kids. So
do you have contact lens?
No, I don't. I have good vision. So
well, that's good. All right. So when we print money to solve problems like poor treasury auctions, Right now, we're having poor treasury auctions every time we have an auction because they know that our debt's out of control. Our deficits are out of control. For those who don't understand, the government runs a deficit. They need to finance it, so they securitize the deficit. They make a bond and they sell it in the market. And when no one wants it, they have to print money to cover. Oh my gosh, that's where we are now. So that will lift the price of gold even more. We're not done. We're not even into a middle gear. I think we're finishing the first gear. That's what I think.
So that's where you would say right now, like if we were to zoom out, I mean, you've talked about this entire financial reset for the past few years since I've followed your work, and that this is the like, what current phase would you say we're in right now, to being towards the end?
For gold?
Yeah, for gold, for precious metals, gold and silver.
Well, you got to define the stages. I said we just finished the first stage. Second stage is widespread recognition of abuse in money printing, monetary inflation. Most people can't even define inflation. It's a monetary phenomenon that results in higher prices. So most people think inflation is higher prices. Well,
no, the dollar losing whatever currency you have, losing its value, its purchasing power.
Yeah, but they did something in 2021. They kind of, it was mainly the Rockefellers. They smashed the supply chain. Okay, so prices went up, and that was not necessarily from money infused into the system. It was from wrecking the supply chain. Okay, but I don't want to get all over the place here. That's okay. The second stage is widespread recognition of the abuse of monetary printing and expansion, which is monetary inflation. Okay,
and that's happening right now, you would say.
We're into that now. I think we've transitioned, after gold got, say, to 3,500, 4,000, we transitioned into the second stage of monetary problem. We're in a Weimar situation in ultra slow motion.
And we already saw all the trannies too. So just like the Weimar Republic.
We've seen the trannies?
I said we already saw all the trannies. Remember, like all the transgenders during the Weimar Republic? We've already had that in America now. So it's basically like copying it to a T.
I'm actually a little ignorant of the tranny phenomenon in the Weimar Republic.
Yeah, that was really when transgenders became a thing. They were performers during the Weimar Republic. Their society totally went to shit. They were being indoctrinated in the schools. They had everything, a whole collapse of society morally. That was like a huge part of the Weimar Republic. You know what came next?
Did they have a big mic over there?
Probably.
Okay, so what's the third stage?
Yeah, tell me, what's the third stage?
Well, this is hard to define because we don't have a whole lot of historical precedents, but I believe it's going to be something like, I'm struggling for the right words, a bifurcated economy where some of the businesses will honor the money and other businesses will not.
Okay.
Where you might actually see at a supermarket, we don't accept dollars, but we do accept gold coins and silver coins.
Yeah.
And here's our price for today. And tomorrow, here's our price for tomorrow. And the next day, here's our price for tomorrow. And it keeps going up.
So we saw that in Argentina, right? That was kind of similar, like, all those famous photos of people with like a wheelbarrow of cash trying to go and buy a box of cereal. And then they get to the grocery store and they're like, oh, sorry, like you don't have enough money.
You don't have enough because the price went up between the time you got out of your house and you arrived at the store. Okay, that is a very big problem. And that's what I define stage 3 to be. But there will be a lot of corporations that say, we don't want the dollar. And there's going to be a demand. It's going to be a public outcry, and the honest bankers. There's some honest bankers. They're smaller. They're not the biggest ones. Are the most corrupt. Yeah, the smaller bankers are going to say we need to reform the dollar, and I think that's where stablecoin is entering the picture. And it's not clean. No. It's not clean. Let's shift over to the stable coin if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to give you my impression of the USD tether. Now you have said that they can freeze your Tether account.
Censor. Yeah. So your funds, yeah, they can freeze, they can censor, they can blacklist you if they don't like what you're spending your money on. And you can look, tons of Tether has been frozen over the years. And there are alternatives, though, to centralized stablecoins. I personally use something, it's kind of a cute little saying, FUSD. It's called Freedom Dollar. But this is a decentralized private stablecoin. And I do think like there are alternatives, but unfortunately, these alternatives are not mainstream. They're not very well known. They're like in niche groups. So I hope one day people will understand the power of these decentralized stable coins, because they can't be censored. They can't be, your funds can't be confiscated.
I want large scale competition for a dozen major stable coins.
Yeah.
That will keep them honest. I mean, Wall Street banks are developing their stable coins right now. It's for internal operations that can manage their cash functions.
Yeah.
Because cash is getting digitized,
Yeah.
tokenized. This is interesting, but I want to bring up something regarding Tether that you probably know about, but I just want to bring it up because it's so important in my opinion. Let's focus on the BRICS nations.
Let's
And
do it.
I like the Gulf monarchies because, believe it or not, they've got one foot in each pond and they're trying to do the right thing. And they're pressured by the Americans and the British to do the wrong thing. They're pressured to keep the war going, whatever war. It doesn't matter. Let's do a war. I mean, a war here, a war there, a war there. War's good. War. Okay. Service to Satan.
Yeah.
Okay. So I like focusing on, say, Qatar. They call it Qatar. I call it Qatar.
I call it Qatar too, and I always kind of laugh when people say Qatar. I'm like, what? Where is this place?
Cookie
Qatar.
cutter. Cookie cutter. Okay. All right. So I call it Qatar so that it's not thought of in the same vein as a cookie cutter. All right. Qatar has a lot of treasury bonds. Now, they're gradually getting rid of them, and they're not doing it at a high enough volume to get attacked by the United States.
Okay.
Whoever, like Japan did it in a rapid form. They did 200 billion in 11 or 12 months, and the result caused big problems. And down the road, they decided to go to the gold standard, and they started getting their leaders assassinated. This has not stopped. Okay, so the BRICS nations are selling gradually, steadily, methodically, steadily, consistently, steadily, and they're not stopping. It's been going on for 2 years. Okay, I heard that in 1 year they did about 2 trillion, but they got about 6 or 7 trillion in foreign hands. So if we're in the 3rd year, we might have seen 3 or 4 trillion already sold. What happens when they go? What they're doing is they're going to Dubai to dump them. Now Dubai is in a very precarious position. They are like the official clearinghouse for treasuries for BRICS nations. So let's just say Qatar, they got 10 billion they want to get rid of next week. Well, they go to Dubai, and Dubai says, okay, we're going to contact the Treasury Department, which is obligated to buy them back because they issued them. Most people don't know that. They think, well, there'll be no buyer. No, the U.S. government must buy. Okay, so what does the U.S. government do? They issue $10 billion of USD Tether.
Yeah.
And they print it out of thin air, and they create $10 billion new Bitcoin. So we got a Bitcoin Tether connection for treasury bond dumping that can only end badly. I'm not sure. I don't have it all figured out, Bria, honestly, how they're going to hit a tripwire, how they're going to stumble. But it could be from freezing accounts because people might want to take their Tether and get rid of their Tether quickly, and the U.S. government won't want them to dump their Tether quickly, so they freeze the accounts to prevent the quick dumping.
You know what's really interesting, and this is obviously like on a much smaller scale, but this just reminded me. So I grew up in California, and I just saw that Gavin Newsom actually passed a law recently, and it's been effective as of January 1st. And basically, it makes anyone who has cryptocurrencies on centralized exchanges, so like Coinbase or Binance, and a lot of people do hold their cryptocurrencies on these exchanges, and obviously they're waiting for XRP maybe to hit $10, $20, etc. And he now issued a law: if you do not touch those cryptocurrencies for 3 years, they are property of the government. They are completely seized and sent over to the government. And it kind of also reminds me of like what we're talking about with Tether, because it's showing that if you do have like custodial crypto, it's property of the government. But also it's showing like the dangers of these centralized exchanges, and like when you're keeping your crypto long term, or even using centralized stablecoins.
Well, what government can claim ownership of, say, Bitcoin that's been sitting idly for 3 years?
Yeah.
What government? California?
Well, the California government can now, and they are doing it.
Well, but my question is, how do they claim that Bitcoin is in California?
Because when you sign up for an exchange, you're giving all your information.
Okay, so it's the owner's address.
Yeah.
So if a California citizen has a crypto account and an asset sits for 3 years
yeah,
idle,
which a lot of people, I mean, I would say most people that have Bitcoin, they're not touching that Bitcoin. It's a store of value. They are keeping that on their exchange or whatever wallet they're holding it in, and they're waiting for it to hit $1 million. And now California, just as well as I would say the government, which has already seized an excess of Bitcoin. It's starting to happen, and it's very alarming. And I think I made a video about this today because I think a lot of people aren't even aware of this.
Is that an existing standing law, or is it a proposal?
No, it's a law. Gavin Newsom signed off on it, and it is effective as of January 1st.
Well, that's going to result in a lot of people leaving California, and a lot of people selling their Bitcoin or having their brother hold it in Arizona.
Yeah, or just, being aware that in order to protect our assets, we do need to have our be in control of our keys, and that is really important. So like you could obviously have like a non-custodial wallet or keep it in cold storage. It's really important that people realize this.
How will California seize if they don't have the keys?
So this is the thing. So they cannot seize. If I have my crypto in, let's say, Edge Wallet, for example, that's what I use. If I have my crypto in Edge Wallet, I'm in charge of my keys. But if I have my crypto on Coinbase, the California government, because I'm sure Coinbase is having to report to the government, and then they are able to, because they're in charge of your keys, they send over that crypto to the government.
Okay, so the exchanges are vulnerable, but private wallets are harder for them to grab the keys.
They cannot,
They can demand the keys and not be given the keys, and then the person migrates to Arizona and has to deal with an asset tax for crossing the border. Okay, California is turning into a shithole.
Yeah, absolutely.
And have you remember the song Hotel California?
Yeah.
I saw an adaptation a year of it called Hellhole California. And it was really quite amusing and very well done, the video. I don't think California is going to stand for much more of Gavin Newsom, because I think Trump is really, he's on the case right now. I mean, the three big frauds that I know about are the $500 million stolen for masks, then the $5 to $6 billion stolen for homeless.
Yeah.
And now I think it's $2 or $3 billion for the Palisades reconstruction after the fire, which by the way, was a directed energy weapon, DEW. I call it a dewdrop.
I agree. And then also, too, you have to think of all of the money stolen, the billions of dollars stolen for our high-speed rail in California.
That's the other one. That's the fourth one. What's the amount? What's the amount on that?
I think it's like 18 billion. At least.
18. So it's I would like to see. Let me segue to the sanctuary states and governors.
Okay.
I'd like to see the governors of New York, Illinois, Minnesota, California, and maybe Oregon all arrested for sanctuary cities sanctuary states, which is basically insurrection against the federal government, opposing the cleanup of illegal citizens who are in our country illegally and who are
Yep.
committing crimes. So they're protecting criminals who are committing felonies,
Yeah.
often for criminal purposes and fraud. So what's wrong with cleaning up the Somalis in Minnesota who are predominantly involved in fraud in a grand scale? Oh, I would bet to believe that I'd be willing to believe that there's a lot more fraud in the bigger states.
Oh, yeah, and within the actual government too. I mean, within California, within New York, these people need to be put behind bars. For, I mean, I don't want to get too into it, but basically how they have enslaved our population, how they have devalued the dollar, how they have committed these acts of fraud has ruined people's life.
I'll go so far as to say that the sanctuary states are going to be the lit fuse for civil war. And
Yeah.
if Trump is talking right now about invoking the Insurrection Act only for Minnesota, which is interesting because I thought it was to be invoked nationally, but it appears that it can be invoked state by state, which is interesting and very, very intriguing, which means that he could single out New York, Illinois, Minnesota, California, and Oregon, and maybe Washington State too, but
Yeah.
I just don't hear them being a big problem. And if he could invoke it for those states, then the National Guard comes in. The Supreme Court laid it all out. You can't call in the National Guard. You have to invoke the Insurrection Act first. So
You know what, just kind of, I don't want to say scares me. I hate using that word, but I just don't like, I guess, centralized authority coming in and taking away certain rights. And I know it's inevitable and it needs to happen because we need to get these illegal immigrants out of our country. But at the same time, I hope citizens like myself don't have to pay the consequences and lose more freedom over time with obviously there being more control.
yeah,
Because we saw that with the Patriot Act. And, you know, when they do come in to save the day, we're losing our rights and we never get those back.
so we're losing the rights to defend ourselves, and the Supreme Court just had a case, very disturbing case, and I can't remember what state it was in, but the police broke in because they thought that a woman was committing suicide. So the police broke the door down. They did not have a warrant, and the Supreme Court backed them. And now we've got the Fourth Amendment for unreasonable search and seizure being tossed to the side. We might see other freedoms for good citizens being thrown away.
I do actually have a question. This is kind of coming back to California, and I've asked this question multiple times recently on X, especially because, you know, the fraud in California is such a popular topic. I'm really, really curious why the California government wants the rich out of the country so badly. They have pushed out so many big businesses, so many wealthy billionaires. And it's like, and now at this point, they're trying to get rid of, you know, the multimillionaires. What is their strategy?
I don't think they're trying to get rid of them, Bree. I think they just want to grab money and they're looking for the deep pockets, and they probably have a stupid mindset, stupid, insane, ignorant mindset that if a man or a woman or a group, if they're worth $10 billion, it's not going to hurt them to lose one. And they're thinking, screw you, you got no right to touch my money. They get out of town.
Yeah, but they've forced out all of these people, and that's like such a big tax bracket where they are.
I know, but I'm saying that they're going after money. They want money because they want their programs, they want their fraud.
Yeah, but in the end, wouldn't you think if they're pushing these people out, they're getting less money?
I don't know. I haven't seen figures.
That doesn't make sense. Like the numbers don't add up, and that's where I'm really trying to comprehend.
Hey, look, you're attributing intelligence to socialists, and that's a very dangerous thing to do.
Okay, yeah.
If they see that they're pushing out more billionaires and they're getting less money to steal and defraud, they'll probably try harder because they're not going to want to say that didn't work. They never say that didn't work, and they never try to point to a successful socialist experiment because there are none.
Yeah. And
They're
it's
some of the dumbest people in our country.
Yeah. And now what's just really sad is they're after the middle class. And the middle class nowadays is basically living paycheck to paycheck, especially in California. In California, you know, we're seeing like outrageous gas prices. I think our gas is nearly double the rest of the country. I made a video the other day, actually, it was for like a credit card company, and people were like, "Oh my gosh, the gas prices!" And it didn't even go through my mind because I'm just used to it. That's what I pay for gas. It's like over $5.
Is it really over $7 or $8 a gallon?
No, it depends on what gas, but I like 5.25 for the gas I have to use.
Okay, so you're still double the
Yeah.
good states. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that, well, you know, they pretty much pushed Chevron out.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I covered that story. I try to, pardon me, I try to follow California because I think it's going to be a turning point.
Yeah.
It's going to be the most destroyed economy. And look what's happening just with looting now in Los Angeles, getting more widespread looting. They don't arrest. And if they did arrest, they put them right back out. They're not allowed to arrest illegals for stealing.
I got out of Los Angeles in 2020. I had a very good career out there, and unfortunately, I felt I needed to put my safety above my career, and I got the hell out of there.
Treasury bills are being shunned more and more for trade payment. They're looking for something that they can mutually trust. And I really like a certain phrase that I heard when they were talking about Ripple and XRP. They said that it is a trusted bridge asset that engages in a consensual handshake.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that says a lot. It means that if it's between, say, Toyota and Long Beach for a shipment, Toyota will not say, well, we don't trust XRP. They've got a consensual handshake. In Japan, they've got compliance. They trust it. They're adopting it. In the United States, we're going to do the same thing, but we're the slowest nation that I'm aware of among the majors.
And why do you think that is? Do you think that's just these big banks getting in the way?
Yeah. They don't want to give up their banking cartel. I mean, look what the blockchain would do. I mean, look at Building 7 for 9/11 at the World Trade Center. You may not know this, Bree, but my inside sources said that it was loaded with duplicate serial number data that JP Morgan had been doing fraudulent bond sales for to the tune of a couple $1 trillion.
Wow.
Okay, so they can't.
I'm not surprised.
They won't be able to do that with the blockchain.
Yeah, yeah.
I got a concern about the blockchain. I'll just throw in.
Yeah, one here.
They're going to have to make it better and better encrypted all the time because AI is getting smarter and smarter, and we're going to have a problem with this. Okay, so.
But there are, like, if you later, when you do a little bit of research into privacy coins, those are quantum resistant.
That sounds good, but I just have tremendous faith in AI overcoming everything. Everything.
Yeah.
Including a female robot who will go through all the motions, if you know what I'm trying to talk about, and the guy won't know it's a robot. I mean, we will be sweat, there will be fluids, there will be reaction, there will be goosebumps. Just give it time. I'm very concerned about AI.
Instead of Russia or China having sending over their honeypots, they'll just send over robots.
China is so far advanced; they've already got them.
Yeah.
I mean, there was an executive at Google who left when a certain Global Alliance executive order went into effect. A certain Google executive, and he went to China. And he is in charge of their cyborg development. And I'm telling you, they are way ahead of us We may have progress in certain areas, but I'd prefer to talk about XRP. Go
Yeah,
back
let's
to
hear
the
about it. I really want to hear about XRP's role in this entire new system we're entering into. And also, now that Ripple does have, like, I think, what is it, a new banking license, or it's like a temporary banking license?
No, not temporary. It's provisional. They need to satisfy. It's a standard acceptance of a license, and they've got to do the standard task to build out the necessary functions so that they can go ahead and serve as the bank.
Okay.
Very standard, very standard.
Yeah, I would love to just hear about from your perspective, Ripple's role in this, and also like how Ripple, obviously, since Ripple is basically becoming a bank, how they're going to be different than the banks we're already dealing with that we despise.
Let me.
Oh, it's true. Like, what's going to be the difference between Ripple and JP Morgan?
I'm hoping a lot, but that is what we need to see. That is a high point on a list we need to see.
Yeah.
Okay, let me answer your last question first. Brad Garlinghouse made some quotes at the recent November Ripple Swell meeting. He said, "We're not looking to replace or to overwhelm Wall Street. We're looking to upgrade them. We're not looking to take their power. We're looking to share it." Okay, I took that to mean they are going to improve Wall Street to make them XRP compliant and useful. I'm sorry, what's the word? Compatible with tokenizing on the rails their assets and getting transfers and all that, which is great. But I also took it to mean Ripple wants to be in the club.
Yeah.
Now let's just speak colloquially. I'm concerned that Garlinghouse rubs shoulders a bit too much with Jamie Dimon and what's his name, Larry Fink.
Yeah.
Little too much, but I back off. I'm a fair guy. He also spends a lot of time not rubbing shoulders.
Yeah. And also, like, the reason they do have all of the connections they have is obviously because he is meeting with all of these high-ranked individuals and creating these relationships. Like, Ripple wouldn't have all of these integrations if not.
Right. Now, that's why I step back and I would like to see, and I am seeing, that Garlinghouse is meeting with 30 people.
Mm-hmm.
And at the Ripple Swell meeting, it was a who's who. Oh, it was every. I thought, oh my God, this is it. They're going to become the global standard.
Yeah.
So what I want to see is a little bit of friction between Garlinghouse and Jamie Dimon. I want to hear them argue about something in public. I want Jamie Dimon to say, well, Ripple proposed this and we're not sure it's a good idea. And then Garlinghouse comes back and says, yeah, but that'll eliminate fraud.
Yeah, I would like to see that too. And I'm curious. I feel like he doesn't do too many. I don't know. Maybe like too many public conversations. We see him. I've seen him go after Cynthia Loomis one time, but for the most part, I feel like he's pretty in his lane and quiet online for obvious reasons.
Yeah, I want him. I want him to be a little bit more aggressive. I want him to challenge Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And point out her banking lobby contributions and how she's corrupt. I want some challenges.
I would like to see that too.
Let's get back to XRP in a pure sense. With the consensual handshake, there's going to be a lot of very big advantages for the banks. They're going to have an 80 to 85% reduction in costs.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to see competitors standing to the side watching and saying, well, we're going to give this 12 to 18 months while we watch, because they're going to watch themselves become obsolete. This is going to be a race. It's going to be a starting bell. A couple are going to start out of the blocks quickly, and then all the rest are going to follow them. It's not going to be one by one. It's going to be all at once because competitors are going to get an advantage, and they will not permit that. Furthermore, all of them are already working toward the adoption and integration. They're already linked up with the central banks and getting the trade payment. Okay, they're calling it cross-border. I call it trade payment. They don't want to call it trade payment because that's the Treasury bill standard. This is very subtle. They're not calling it the trade payment settlement device. They're calling it cross-border transfer bridge asset. It's going to be the same thing. And that's going to bring about XRP gradually being recognized piece by piece, not all at once, piece by piece. People are going to be saying, but doesn't that mean it qualifies as the global standard for trade payment? Oh, no. It's a widely used, recognized trade bridge asset for oh, come on. Same thing. Okay, this is very subtle, and it's a good part of their strategy. Very, very good, because that means they can do piece by piece. And once they get over 60 to 70 or 80%, then it'll be recognized as the standard. And that's when we hit 1,000.
Wow. So do you think as of right now, banks are actually loading up on XRP?
Great question, and I'm glad you asked it because it's where I wanted to go next.
Oh, I read your mind.
Well, here's my thinking. I'm coming from a different angle, but we're arriving at the same place. It was November. I heard that Ripple was applying for a bank license, and I thought, oh my gosh, they're gonna have some trouble entering the club. The banker cartel. They're attacking the banker cartel. They're telling the people that the banks are taking too much money on transfers on every single function they do.
Yeah.
And XRP and Ripple could, unless the banks adopt their model, they're going to make the big banks obsolete. So that's an attack. That's a frontal attack, Bree. So my thinking was very simple. Sometimes I try not to be too smart. I think, let's break this down. If Ripple gets the license, it'll mean a few things. To begin with, it'll mean that BlackRock, it'll mean that Bank of America, JP Morgan, Bank of New York Mellon, they all got themselves 3 to 5 billion coins. Okay, it'll also mean that eventually the US government will do active promotion that XRP will be the global standard for trade payment, which they will call cross-border bridge asset settlement.
Wow.
So if they get the license, it's a guarantee of a minimum 1,000, maybe 5,000. I don't talk 5,000. I just talk 1,000 because
I think that's a better. I mean, I see XRP. You know, I think we could have even way higher numbers than that, but I think it's good just to be a little bit more.
Right. Okay. They're doing glitches showing 16,000. Okay.
Yeah.
But let's not get caught in that web, because when you begin talking about that, you start having maybe a quarter or 20% of your audience tuning right out.
Yeah.
So
no,
I
agree.
So what I do is I talk, what are the factors in events? I'm not a calendar schedule guy. I'm an event schedule guy. Yeah. So what events have to happen to see $20, $50, $100, $200, $500, and 1,000? I've got those events in my mind. Okay. What I do to convince people is I talk about the big players. The big players are Bank of New York Mellon. They're going to tokenize the derivatives with 1 trillion in volume per year. Oh, just do 1%. Okay, you know, people get caught up, but let's keep it simple. 1% of a quadrillion is 10 trillion. What is that monthly? It's almost $1 trillion. To move $1 trillion per month for derivative settlement, they can't do that under 1,000.
It would make sense to be using XRP to do that.
I know, but they can't do that for under 1,000 price.
Yeah,
it won't work.
There are interesting arguments around that, but I do believe I'm like, okay, so we connected because of Verson, and I think Verson really lays this out so well when he talks about higher price XRP would just make more sense for these banks to be using, or for these institutions to be able to move money. It's the most logical.
I would like to just put in my 2 cents. I regard Versan as the most informed, the most educated, the most intellectual, the most astute in explaining the intricate and complex concepts behind XRP and digital and stablecoin, all of it. I've learned a lot from him. I've been on the show 2 or 3 times, and I highly recommend people look up Versan at the Black Swan Capitalist. The guy is a genius, and he's also a very early investor. I think he's been in it for 5 or 6 years, which usually being 18 cents, that's not my price.
I adore Versan. I think he's an incredible young man. He is, and I get chills saying this, I think he is one of the best voices of our generation for digital assets. I'm a huge fan of his channel. And I honestly like the interview you guys did together before the holidays. That was when I reached out to him and I was like, I would love to have a conversation with Versan. And now he has been so kind to be able to introduce me to you, Dr. Jim Willie. And I'm just so grateful that we have all connected, because both of you guys are 2 people I really look up to as mentors in this space. And I've learned so much about macroeconomics from the 2 of you. So I'm just so glad to even be able to talk to both of you.
There's more to this. Since they got the license, that means the people who run the U.S. government, namely the biggest banks in Wall Street, they run the government. J.P. Morgan runs the Department of Treasury. It means they're going to promote XRP as the global standard. Now, I can't emphasize this enough. It's one thing to have a couple banks like Fidelity or Bank of New York Mellon or a NASDAQ official. That's one thing.
Yeah.
But if you have the U.S. government trying to promote the standard, they're going to create a parade.
Yeah.
And it's not going to stop at 1,000. So I like to point out what will take us to 100 or 200. It's going to be one of the giants. It's going to be Bank of New York Mellon with the derivatives and the DTCC.
Mm-hmm.
It could be the BRICS and the UAE and a lot of different trading for commodity settlement.
Mm-hmm.
It could be that the central banks working in unison, and behind the scenes, without telling us, they're making XRP the trade payment standard, while they're allowing the corporations to continue calling it the bridge asset for cross-border trade. It could be a lot of different giant retail organizations like Bucky in Texas, and I don't know where else they are. I think they're in
Florida too, Alabama probably, but for sure Florida and Texas.
Are they in Arizona, New Mexico?
I don't know if they're on the West Coast. I'm not sure, but definitely the East Coast.
Okay, but they're all over Texas, and they got 20 gasoline pumps, so they're very big. And I heard they have the best beef brisket sandwiches.
Yeah, they do. I want to get out my Buc-ee's shirt. I think I have one here.
Okay, next time I'm in Florida, I'm going to check it out. I'm going to look for them. All right, but there are other events that could make this happen. It could be Japan all alone.
Yeah.
Japan all alone could say we're settling all of our trade payment for all the world. I mean, like Toyotas in Saudi Arabia, in Ghana, all the European Toyotas and Nissan and Honda. It could be global Japanese trade settlement. That alone will take it to 200.
Yeah.
Okay? People call me crazy, Bree. And I don't mind it.
No, you're not crazy at all. Usually the people that seem crazy are the ones that are right years down the road. But I think what is really important, and I know you touched on this earlier, and Versan does such a great job about laying this out, is just XRP is neutral. So it would make sense for people to be using it. You need a neutral asset. The dollar is not working anymore. We're quickly seeing that. So it would make sense for, hopefully we'll see with the reverse carry trade, XRP finally being used. It would be more efficient. I do want to also talk about how the Nostra Vostra accounts and how this is going to free up so much idle money.
Okay, I'll give you an example. Suppose there's a bank in the East Coast, could be New York or Philadelphia, who cares, and they want to move $10 million to a bank in Rome. Mm-hmm. Who knows why? Who cares why? It could be somebody who wants to move. Well, let's make it 10 billion, okay? Let's make it, let's make it 10 million. Okay, it could be someone who wants to relocate, like, George Clooney, to avoid arrest, to move to Italy. But it could also be someone involved in a corporation and they want to move in order to begin a big project or, product expansion or whatever. Okay, $10 million, Philadelphia to Rome. Okay, so they line it up. They get all the SWIFT data, the codes, everything lined up. And by the way, SWIFT later is going to become an air traffic controller with no ownership of planes and no responsibility of cargo. That is a wonderful metaphor. All right, so because they get everything lined up and all the codes are lined up, the accounts, the name, the SWIFT code, and all that happy stuff, the bank in Rome has to post an escrow of $10 million. The bank in Philadelphia must post an escrow of $10 million. The origin is nostro, us. Nostro, N, nostro, us, Latin. The destination is vostro, you, vos in Spanish, vuestra in Latin. So each side has to post $10 million in escrow to move 10 million. So you got $30 million in movement, in responsibility, in position, 30 million. Now, because they don't trust each other, and the dollar is not neutral, that's why they have to have the vostro and nostro. I just call them the escrow accounts.
Yeah, that's easier.
Okay, but what are they? The vostro over there and the nostro at the origin. That's what they're called. Or they're called the corresponding bank escrow. Now, and that's not really having something to do with a small bank using a corresponding bank, like a big boy bank. No, it's not the same thing. It's a corresponding escrow account to enable the transfer, to make it risk-free because they don't trust each other. Now, I mentioned that the XRP has the consensual handshake, which means it's neutral.
Yeah.
And that's why it qualifies, and that will eliminate the 10 million over there and the 10 million over here. And people need to understand, this is $20 trillion, give or take. Could be 15, could be 23. I don't know. They don't have a fixed figure. I've heard 15, I've heard 25. Let's just say 20, give or take. $20 trillion that the banking system can free up and use for product development, for business expansion. And let's face it, the big banks have not been lending institutions since the fake COVID. They've not been lending institutions. They're more like predators seeking corporate titles where they refuse to roll over their mortgages. This is predatory. Okay, so there's going to be a lot of economic development from adopting XRP globally. Oh my gosh.
And even on smaller scales too. Like if we even think about, okay, so obviously we have cross-border payments, which is going to take up the majority of the money. But even to think about the way a teacher is paid her salary, all of that will be done through the blockchain too. And we're seeing companies like Zebek. Have you heard of Zebek before?
I can't hear you. What is it again?
Oh, it's called Zebek. Have you heard of Zebek before?
Zebek, no.
Yeah, so it's actually pretty cool because what they're doing, and they're using XLM, so this is why it kind of triggered this thought, but they're using blockchain technology to be able to stream people's paychecks. So rather than getting paid like every other week, people are getting paid in real time, which is really cool. And they're, because like all of that money that was originally kind of being stored with these batch payments and being so delayed now will have more power to be used on a daily basis. And I think that's really the world we're like going into. And it's the same idea, just on a smaller scale.
I'd like to see it on a daily basis. I think that'd be better, but I don't need hourly. I don't see any need for hourly or minute.
Well, think about it too, like with these banks having so much leverage over people's money. And when there are liquidity constraints, I think it's going to become a necessity rather than a luxury.
Oh, the whole concept of check kiting and delays for a swift transfer, those guys are gone. They're gone. I mean, it's 3 seconds. Okay, I got a story to tell you. It's really pretty funny. It was February 1st last year. No, I'm sorry, 2 years ago, 24. We're in a new year. 24, February 1st. Someone said to me, hey, Jim, I just sent you a bank wire. It was something related to my consulting work and whatever. And it was from New York City. And she said, it was done at 12 noon on Saturday. And they told me you probably won't get it until Tuesday.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And you probably needed that money.
No, I got Monday morning, 7 a.m. Okay,
Yeah.
it's already, the quantum system is already, it's already working. It's already working. Okay, since that time, I've had about, I don't know, 30 transfers. Every single time they said, tell James that it'll arrive in 1 to 3 days. And I
Yeah.
tell my client, no, more like 2 to 4 hours.
You know, it's interesting
And
because
I've been incorrect only once. I've been incorrect only once.
so I work with companies overseas, and I still, like, if they issue payment, it still takes a few days rather than a few hours. So I have not experienced that.
I don't know why that is, because I have had uninterrupted 2 to 4 hours.
And this is through Swift, like this is from
Yeah.
another country. Yeah, I've never
International,
had that. Yeah, I've never
international
had.
Swift, usually from the United States, but also from London,
Yeah,
and France and England. No, France, Germany. No, it's been London. No, it's the United States and London.
interesting. Yeah, I haven't experienced that yet.
And you
I
know,
mean,
the bankers don't even understand. They
yeah,
said, okay, I had one from Virginia, and they actually said we're more strict now because certain measures went into place as of December 15th, December 15th. And I said to my client, what a pack of bullshit. It'll be here in 4 hours. It was here in 2.5. They said 5 days.
interesting.
Okay.
Okay, well,
All
this
right.
is, I mean, that's good news. So,
Yeah, it's good news. So that's the benefit. It's the corresponding bank. That's what they're calling it. The escrow funds or the corresponding bank funds, account funds. That is all freed up. That's just one benefit. The 85% reduction in cost, that is indescribable. You're going to have company after company saying, we've got to get on this. We've been watching. We've got to get it. They're going to be anxious. They're going to be pushing people out of the way in order to get a consultant. They're going to overpay consultants to get it done. This is going to be a real boon for consultants to digitize their assets and get them on board. And they're not going to be sitting around waiting 18 months for their competitors to show them what the advantage was. They're already seeing the advantages. I want to mention something that's really kind of interesting and intriguing and mysterious.
ooh,
Okay, the backdrop is Matrix the movie.
yeah.
Okay.
The first one?
Yeah, the first and second, they each had this phenomenon, and it's the glitch. Okay, and Keanu Reeves noticed the whole lesson is that our world is a digital program and a hologram. I don't buy that. I don't buy that. But let's just, I want to stick with the movie because it gives a lesson. Okay, Keanu Reeves noticed, oh, did you see that? Did you see that? Carrie Ann Moss. Did you see that, Trinity? There was a cat. He was walking across and then he vanished. A glitch. Okay, a glitch. So the glitches are, okay, here's the glitch. In November, we got a peak, and it was for like an hour or so, according to the guy's report, of Thailand doing a private exchange. This is very important. Not the public exchange, not the coin exchange, not Coinbase, not Gemini, not Upbit or Uphold or any of that. Private exchange. They were doing trades and settlement in Thailand. XRP at $4,200. Okay,
Wow.
and word got out. So everybody's wondering, what was that all about? And I'm thinking, matrix, glitch, intentional.
Yeah.
They're telling us where it's going. Okay,
And
then there was another.
There's been a few reports of this, of exchanges using XRP.
There was one just a few days ago.
Yeah.
A few days ago, and it was at 1629 on more than one exchange.
Oh, more than one at the same time? Okay,
More
that's
than
very
one
common
exchange.
then. Yeah.
I believe I'm looking for anybody to tell me that's not correct. And you're not going to get, an AI tool give you that kind of information. By the way, I got to tell you something. My buddy and I, we've done 30, 40, 50 AI tests. They fail them all. They fail every single one when it's a geopolitically important topic, every single one. So if I were to say, was 1629 apparent on more than one exchange last week for XRP, it'll probably say, we have no information on it. Okay, fine. Go to hell. They are programmed and they tend to be leaning very heavily toward the MSM party line. Okay.
Yeah, well, it also makes sense. I mean, if AI, especially like ChatGPT, is an indoctrination tool, they are going to withhold information for us or try and skew our opinions.
Absolutely. Okay, there was another event. It was not a screen. It was not a like a period of time in Thailand. It was a leaked Federal Reserve document. Leaked. Somebody let it out. And stuff like that I don't think is an accident.
No.
I have a rule with my news. Pardon me?
Was it a whistleblower, you think?
Could be. I don't know, but I have a rule. If it's an issue that's valued over $1 billion, it's never an accident. So somebody leaked that XRP was planned a long time ago, and the Federal Reserve was talking about it among other central banks. $16,000 price. Okay, this is, I think, where we're going. Now, Jake Claver has altered his forecast. He's now saying 10,000 for XRP before Trump's term is over. In other words, before the end of 2028. Okay, that would be wonderful. I know a lot of people who would start foundations and maybe try to purchase a small Latin American country with their XRP. I don't know why Max Kaiser hasn't tried to purchase El Salvador and become king. He's got 1 million XRP. I'm sorry, he got 1 million Bitcoin. He got 1 million Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I am curious with, I do know some of the people that were involved in the creation of XRP. And I don't know if they had that in mind of like certain price targets. I know there's quotes by David Schwartz talking about obviously like a higher price XRP being the most logical for the use case, but I'm not sure if they're like, okay, I believe that XRP is going to be $16,000 one day.
I know, but I maybe I shouldn't have brought that up, but I wanted to bring it up as a sequence of stories regarding the glitch.
Yeah.
The
no, and I
the
totally
glitch.
understand. Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, you can focus on 1629. That'd be a better one to focus on. Let me explain something. According to my perception, if one of the big players, and I've mentioned a few, UAE, Bank of New York Mellon, the Japanese exporters, NASDAQ, if they start using it, it will not work at $20. It's not a matter of, well, we want it to be $20 or we prefer that. No, they need that. It's a very different thing. Okay, Garlinghouse and his buddies, the other executive, they talk about reduced friction.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is if you need to move a lot of coins in order to satisfy a $10 million trade, as opposed to a few coins, because it's worth 100 times more, 100 times fewer coins, you get 100 times less friction.
But also if, XRP transactions are that quick, the coins can be reused. So if they're using, let's say, I don't know, 1,000 coins within for that particular conversion, it wouldn't really matter. You know what I mean? Because those coins are being reused. And if it is that fast, see, like I've heard that argument.
I don't know the technology of recycling and reuse.
They will be recycling and reusing, but I do think it still makes sense to have like a higher price XRP. But I also think like a low price XRP also makes sense.
I tend to think that if they do the reuse, they get more friction. And we just have to leave it to them. I do believe that the central banks and the big banks have already decided. Mm-hmm. I mean, like 6 years ago, what the price will be.
Yeah.
But by the way, XRP stands for transfer rate peg. They've already decided these things. and why would they make XLM associated with a dollar a dollar-based stable coin. I believe it's USDC Circle. Why
Mm-hmm.
would they make Stellar and XLM non-neutral? Because they're yielding to XRP being neutral. They've already decided this.
So I have one question, or actually a statement. I loved how it was like a recent interview you did. I don't remember the name of this young man, but he was basically saying how he only believes in gold and silver and he's not interested in cryptocurrencies, especially not XRP, because XRP is a banker's coin. And I really loved your rebuttal to that and how you said, you know what, maybe it's a bank.
Dustin Nemos. Dustin
Okay,
Nemos.
Dustin Nemos. I really loved your response to that. And I would just like to maybe have you say this response again so my audience can hear, because I do have a lot of people that follow me that don't like XRP, that follow me because I talk about a lot of other coins. And I would just like you to encourage them to maybe buy XRP and why you think it's a good investment. I mean, obviously, the whole interview you've talked about it, but just a quick summary.
Yeah, this is going to be a funny answer. I don't remember what I said to Dustin Nemos. So I have to rethink this from the ground up. So, this is a tough question. For those who prefer gold and silver for trade payments and settlement, why would you prefer XRP? Well, first of all, down the road, I think XRP is going to have a gold basis. First of all, down the road.
Okay.
Way down the road. Don't worry about it. So they're doing functions now, and XRP is considered a neutral asset. It's not dollar dependent. They can dislike the dollar and dislike the US government or dislike England or dislike Brussels, and it's okay. It's a neutral consensual handshake.
Ripple could stop tomorrow and XRP would still be running.
Yeah, that's true. It gets rid from on-demand liquidity. It removes the escrow accounts for the corresponding function, which frees up a lot of capital for the big banks. It reduces the cost by 85% for the banks and their transfers. JP Morgan has already mentioned what they expect to be the savings, and I don't know how that is not. I don't know how they will avoid seeing a higher JP Morgan share price because of that, reducing their costs. There's really a clumsy plan, a clumsy alternative for gold and silver. What is the device that would be gold and silver based? What is it? Now, already we're seeing the BRICS with their unit, which is 60% gold and 20% each, the two currencies. They're already having a slow time with that. I think they're going to realize XRP is smoother, faster, more efficient.
And transparent.
Yeah, and they don't have to show what their gold holdings are in order to handle all the transfers.
Because also, too, maybe this is a very ignorant perspective, but it seems like countries could be lying about their gold reserves. Like who's auditing? If I'm auditing myself,
they all lie. What we want to do is move money as quickly as we move emails. And that is really the goal. We want fast transmission, kind of like emails. I time it. I talk to a guy in Chicago and I say, I just sent you an email. Let me know when you get it. Start now. And we count it. It's like 3 or 4 seconds. Okay, that's what we want for transfer of money. They call it transfer of value. I call it transfer of funds, but it's the same thing. Okay, there are so many other advantages of XRP. It's going to be more protected and secure. I don't have all the list of the advantages right now at the tip of my tongue. I mentioned a few, but I actually told Dustin Nemos that if he doesn't get on board with XRP, he's going to miss out on 100x opportunity. And he'll regret it. I said, this is like Bitcoin 2.0, but with intellectual property.
Yeah. And I really hope he listens to you and looks into it rather than, being closed-minded.
I doubt he will.
I think a lot of people, and I've seen it over the years, and I'm sure you've seen it to like a much larger scale, but people are really closed-minded. I remember even, years back when I lived in LA, and I would be talking to people about gold and silver and the importance, and even XRP, and they would look at me like I was a lunatic. And
Well,
now we're
fine.
seeing these
That's
prices, and I'm like,
confirmation. That's
I'll be
confirmation.
retired. They'll be still working, you know? And it is confirmation for what we're seeing today.
It's confirmation because 70% of the public ain't that bright. We saw the Ripple bank license.
Yes.
We saw handshakes with JP Morgan, and BlackRock has let he's let the cat out of the bag. They're making a Ripple ecosystem. I believe BlackRock is Ripple private sector, and Ripple is BlackRock private public sector for XRP. I think they're doing the same thing. BlackRock is going to do a Ripple, what's the word? A Ripple dance, okay?
Yeah, especially with tokenization, it would make sense that they would be working with each other rather than against.
And the fact that the Fed is now saying XRP is A-OK and accepted among, you know, they're calling it equivalent. They're calling it equivalent to treasury bills.
Okay, this raises the question, and my mom has been, she's been asking this a lot, you know, it seems like the Federal Reserve is going to be like completely restructured as well as the IRS. Do you see that actually happening? I mean, we're seeing people so fed up with all of this fraud that people are like basically saying they're not going to pay their taxes.
Eventually,
like either
yes.
agencies be, like disappearing entirely, or just
they're going to evolve.
Okay.
And as they evolve, they're going to shrink.
And we have seen that with the IRS. I know this firsthand through some very important people that the IRS is not what it used to be, that it is a small percentage of the employees still even work for the IRS.
If people
crazy.
If they did a consult with me, I could tell them stories, but I'm not going to tell them here. Okay. I didn't get to my climax point.
Sorry.
That's okay. The Fed is basically saying XRP is going to become the global standard for trade payment to replace the treasury bill. The Fed just said that indirectly.
Yeah.
Okay, this is very exciting because if it is recognized and achieves that spot of being a trade payment global standard, there's no way it's under 2,000 to 5,000. No way. Yeah. But I like to focus. I like to focus on 100, 200, 500,000. Yeah, that's where we're going.
That's amazing. Well, I am really so thankful that I'm an XRP holder, and I owe a lot of that to my mom. My mom was really the one that encouraged me to buy XRP. She is one of the smartest people I know, and I am forever grateful for her because I know XRP is going to be making huge moves soon, and that's going to really put me in a great place for the rest of my life. And
it could be very soon.
Yeah, and I'm thankful for people like you who have used your platform to educate the masses, even though you could easily just be chilling at home and not, you know, having to do all these newsletters. And I think you should really give yourself a lot of credit for all the good you have done for the world. And everyone that's watching this should be praying for Dr. Jim Willie, that he continues his fight to expose what's going on and encourage people to really take a hold of their financial sovereignty and really set themselves up for success. Is there any place we can go to support you? I know you've been doing a newsletter for the past 22 years, which is so impressive. Where can people go to subscribe to your newsletter?
This month will be month 262.
Wow.
It's www.golden-jackass.com. The flagship is the newsletter. There's only one. I call it the hat trick letter, but HTL, it doesn't matter. It's on the golden-jackass.com website. Right in the center is a subscribe button. It's one of the least expensive newsletters that's out there. I know a guy who I won't name, and he's got a silver newsletter, and he's about 50% more expensive than mine annually. Yeah. But I don't want to raise the price in the middle of an economic depression, which is what we're in. There's a button for consults, and I'll be doing one in a few hours. I did one yesterday. They're actually a lot of fun. I've done 850 consult calls
Wow.
in 6 years.
Wow.
That's when I started. The end of 19, I started. I had to get the pricing proper and get the buttons in there and all that. But there's also a donate button.
Yeah. So
You
if
know,
we can help you, let's please support Dr. Jim Willie. And also, I think what's very important is praying for you, praying for your safety, praying that you're able to continue your mission, and that you're going to
pray for protection with angels.
yes, that we send
I call them
angels.
lefty, righty, front and back.
Yeah.
I mean, this right there is Saint Michael the Archangel.
Yeah.
And I've been appealing to him more and more each day to slay the demons, clear the path, and provide a wing under which I can operate and be happy and safe. Let's sign off. It's
Yes.
golden-jackass.com. It's in April, it'll be 22 years. I've got a pretty amazing website manager in the Netherlands. He's bilingual. I love him. He's a guy. He's married. So sign up for the newsletter. And you know, there's something interesting. You don't have to read every chapter to enjoy and benefit from a newsletter. You can read the introduction for fun, the dollar section and the XRP section, and later check out the other and just enjoy it and share it with your friend.
Amazing.
We're making history now. This is a global war of good versus evil, God versus Satan.